Hello my beautiful people. Hi fam, welcome to our channel. If you are new to this channel, I am Woven and thank you very much for stopping by. So on here we discuss all things finance, lifestyle, travel and tradition sometimes. And fam, if you are returning, thank you once again for just making time to sit down and tune in. I really appreciate this. Now today we're going to be talking about financial milestones for different decades, for different age groups. So financial milestones in your 20s, in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. Now, ideally, I would have liked to do a separate video for each age group so that we just give it the attention it deserves in enough time. But based on the interactions and just the engagement that I've been getting, I thought it's just best that I start with this one where I give everybody a baseline so we all have something to work from, and then I can get into the individual videos where I share more insight, basically 3, 4, 5, 7 financial milestones, because today we are going to look at ideally between 3 or 4 financial milestones for each age group. Now guys, this is not financial advice. Final decision still lies with you, and if you want financial advice, please contact a registered financial advisor with Namfisa. Thank you very much. Now guys, you would have heard this saying that comparison is a thief of all joy. Am I slouching? I hope I'm not. Back posture, age issues. So you would have heard the saying that comparison is a thief of all joy. And that is really true. Comparing yourself and your financial progress to that of your age mates can be quite overwhelming. You know, just looking at Woven, where she is in her life, and you guys are probably in the same age group, it can be quite overwhelming. And more so timelines like this video I'm now talking about, by the age of certain age, do ABCD, it can also cause quite an anxiety. So please don't take this video as a way to confine you, because we all have different backgrounds, we all have different aspirations. So rather take this as a roadmap to sort of set you on the way to your financial aspirations. Take this as an encouragement, you know, to really probably also as a mirror to see where am I faring, and just how can I take it from here to get to where I want to be financially. So that is the essence of this video. Not to say these are definite, but if you apply these principles, you definitely go a long way. And even in terms of you getting to your age of retirement, you just be much more prepared now that we have gotten that out of the way. So in your 20s, by the time you hit the age of 30, what are some of the financial milestones that you want to achieve? You know, just to get you on the way. So in your 20s, you are coming out of university, you're coming out of your parents' nest, you're really finding your feet around adulthood. What are some of those financial milestones that you want to have? Number 1 is you need to learn how to budget. You guys, I say this all the time, and at this point, I will continue saying it for as long as we are on this channel, because budgeting is the cornerstone of your personal finances. It is the foundation. That is how you master your money, and that is how you understand your money, and that is also how you sort of track your expenses. So that is very important. It's a very important habit to get right from the onset. I got it a bit later in on my 20s, but I'm still glad I got it in my 20s and I was exposed to that. Now, before I continue, guys, it's never too late to start any of these milestones. So you can't say now because I'm in my 50s and I haven't started budgeting, it's too late because I should have done that in my 20s. You can start anywhere. So you can be in your 50s and start budgeting. You can be in your 40s and still pay off your student loan. It's not to say if you're at a certain age group and you've missed a certain mark, then it's too late. In fact, now is the right time to start. So that's the first one. The second one would then be to pay off your student debt, student loan. Now, if you've left university, some of us, not most of us, some of us are beneficiaries of, you can't even be a beneficiary, but some of us where our education was through student loan funding, you know. You guys, please pay your NASFAF loans back. You know, you got a bank loan to cover your studies, so that is something you want to pay off in your 20s before you hit your 30s. The reason why I'm saying this is because, you know, the earlier you start paying off your debt, the better. If you actually carry debt for a longer time, it becomes harder to start or to pay it off. And that is expensive, guys. It can erode your savings. It creeps into your savings because what you're supposed to be putting towards your savings, you're now putting towards your debt repayment plus the interest. So the faster you pay that off, the faster you can actually start saving and investing. And we'll talk about time value of money and the benefits. So that is why you should pay off your student loan. And on top of that, you then need to start building a reputable credit profile, basically. And that is the third one actually that I'm going to talk about. The third one you want to do is to build a positive credit profile. Now, you guys, I can't stress this enough, because when a bank looks at your profile, now in your 20s, you are having aspirations, you want to buy a car, eventually you want to buy a property if you want to. Banks look at your credit profile to see whether you are able to honor your obligations, and if you have a positive credit record or you have a negative credit record. Now that will determine how much credit the bank is going to be willing to extend to you. That's number one. Number two, at what interest rate. Now if the bank says that, oh, you've had a student loan and you haven't been able to pay it off on time, you've missed your payments already, red flags, you are not an ideal client. So you want to build a reputable credit profile in your 20s before you start looking at your vehicle and housing financing and whatever else other type of loan or debt that you're going to acquire. Now, another thing is to have an emergency fund in place. Again, I've said this one, an emergency fund has come to my rescue. It's that big sister that I never had. I'm the firstborn in my family. So it's very important to have an emergency fund in place. I've discussed an emergency fund in one of our previous videos, link here or there. Please check that out. But that is something you want to get out of the way in your 20s. But just to sum it up, an emergency fund is a fund where you have 3 to 6 months of your expenses saved up at any point in time. Now with this economic conditions, I would say at least 6 months of your monthly expenses must be saved up somewhere. So that should include your transport, rent, food, debt if you have, and the likes. So in your 20s, that is essentially what you want to look at. The fourth thing in your 20s, by the time you hit 30, you would want to have saved up at least 1 times your annual salary. Now we use annual salary here, but some people also use your expenses. I'm going to use annual salary because outside of expenses, you also have a bit of life to live. It's expenses, but a bit of savings, a bit of all these other things that are not part of your emergency fund, right? So you want to have your annual salary saved up. Now you're going to ask, now Woven, what if my annual salary when I started at the beginning of my 20s was, say for instance, 15,000, but as I progress into my 30s, it then jumped to 30K, right? And that is quite possible because entry level, and then as you gain experience, you also get other jobs. It's possible. So you can take your average salary. So say for instance, you were earning 15,000 when you started, and 4 or 5 years later, you're earning 35. You can then take a median. Take that 2, divide it by 2, and then you get an average salary. So on average, if you get 30,000 per month, then you want to have 30 times 12 saved up by the time you hit the age of 30. So in your 20s, ideally, you want to, number 1, learn how to budget. Number 2, pay off your student loan and build a reputable credit profile. Number 3, what is that for? Emergency fund. Now let's get to our 30s. Now in your 30s, before you hit the age of 40, what are some of the financial milestones you want to achieve? Please excuse the noise. So in your 30s, this is quite an interesting stage of life, right? In your 30s, you're probably now, you have started having children. If you don't have some already, you're getting married. So the dynamics start changing slightly, quite a lot, if you compare it to your 20s. Now, because of all these changes, there are certain things that you also need to do, certain financial milestones that you need to achieve when you are in your 30s before you hit 40. Number one, you want to pay off all your bad debts. No. There's irrecoverable, Bad debts, irrecoverable. That is an accounting term. That's not what I'm talking about. So there's good debt that you acquire to earn you an income. So it's debt that you have, but it earns you an income. And on top of that, the interest or the returns that you're getting on that investment or income is much more than the interest you're paying on the bank of that debt. So that is good debt. Now, when I say you want to pay off all your bad debt, I'm saying personal loans, I'm saying credit cards. In your 30s, you want to pay off your car because it's a depreciating asset. So those are things that you want to pay off. Again, I've said this before, debt creeps into. Debt really erodes your savings. So imagine if you have a credit card, that 1,000, that 2,000, if you have a personal loan, if you have an overdraft, that money that you could have been paying towards your overdraft, you would have been saving. And the benefits of time, especially the young people, we underestimate the benefit of time, the compound interest factor. Is it Albert Einstein or Warren Buffett that said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world? And if you're not receiving the compound interest, you are paying for it. Something along those lines. And they're very true. Either Albert Einstein or is it Warren Buffett? One of the two, guys. Please go and look up the thing. But it's very true. So pay off your debt. The longer you keep your debt, the more expensive it is. You erode into your savings. You delay your savings rate. So that is the first one. Now, the second one is very important to start saving for retirement. Now, I know in your 20s you started saving already. But now here you give your money definitions, goals to say this is for retirement. Guys, I can't stress this enough. The earlier you start saving for retirement, the better. Number two is then to start saving for retirement. Number three is to start saving for your children. If you have children, you then need to start saving for this as early as possible for their education. This can be done through a study policy. You can have, because of the tax benefits in the study policy, but you can also save in a unit trust fund. You have a myriad of options to save for your children's education, but you want to start this in your 30s. So another financial milestone you want to achieve in your 30s by the time you hit your 40s is basically just to invest some more. Now, how much should you have in your investment or savings? How much should you have saved away by the time you hit 40? At this point, it now becomes 2 times your annual salary. So if your annual salary is 900,000, that is quite, I want an annual salary of 900,000. If your annual salary is 650,000, it means by the time you hit the age of 40, mathematics, please don't fail me, it means you must have at least 1.3 million saved up. By the time you hit 40, if your annual income is 650, you must have at least 1.3 million Namibian dollars or whatever currency you deal saved up. So that is essentially some of the things or some of the financial goals that you want to tick off by the time you hit the age of 40. Now let's get into the 40s, guys. I'm not 40 yet, but I'm quite clued up. I've read, I've got some experience with my clients that I deal with on a day-to-day, You guys know by now I'm in the financial sector. So what are some of the financial milestones that you want to hit by the age of 50? So we've covered 30, we've covered 40, and now we're getting to 50. Now, I admire this age group the most, guys. I just see like a lot of the 40-something-year-olds, they have their lives, their ducks in a row. And quite so, this age group, you tend to be more stable in life. You have reached a certain level of stability, even in terms of your career. You are at almost peak earnings, at this point in time in your 40s. Now, you have obviously built up all the other financial goals. You know how to budget now. You know how to save. You've saved up more. You have started all these things for saving for retirement. But what are the specifics when you get to 40? Now, when you get to 40, the kids are still at home, so you continue, number one, saving. Now here you start saving for the children's higher education. It's university time. You want to be as prepared as possible. I'm hoping our kids are brilliant and they get scholarships. They go to Harvard, Oxford, Stellenbosch University of Namibia, you know, on scholarships, on bursaries. But if that doesn't happen, you want to be prepared. So you need to start saving for the children's higher education. Number two, you want to ensure that you have secured your home. Now, you might have bought a house in your 30s and you might have paid a bit off, but in your 40s, you want to ensure that you have secured a home. Now, obviously, this is for those that I personally believe owning a house is a form of security and it's comfort, because I can't imagine you having a family, right? And you are renting in one apartment and you would have to move out of that apartment either because the owner sold it, or the house, the owner sold it, or you're just not in agreement with the increment of the, you know, annual increment of the rent, or you just no longer like the neighborhood. Now you have your young children and whole family and you have to move. It's just such an inconvenience. But equally so, there are just people that have no aspirations of staying in the same neighborhood all their lives. So then you securing a home basically doesn't make sense. But in your 40s, before you hit 50, if really you want to settle down, you want some sense of security, you have a family, you want to secure a home, and you want to have paid off quite a significant portion of your house, right? During this period before you hit 50. That is what you want to do. Number three, how much should you have saved up in your 40s by the time you hit 50? How much should you have saved up, invested somewhere? You know, at this point in time when you're saving, investing, you have also now started diversifying. You are in bonds, you are in stocks, shares, you know, unit trust funds, you are in real estate, but you have diversified. And how much of that should you have saved up by the time you hit the age of 50? Please don't fall off your chair. So you should have saved up 4 times your annual salary. Now, in your 40s, remember I said you would have hit peak earnings. So in your 40s, if your monthly income is 60,000, 60 times 12, that means your annual salary is 720,000. Yes, 720,000. That is 1. And you need to have 4 times 720 saved up. So that means you need to have at least 3 million. 3 million saved up. 3 million saved up by the time you hit 50. Now, that is if your monthly earning is 60. If you are now at 80 and end, it just means you need to have more saved up. So baseline is 4 times your annual salary. So yeah, that is financial milestones you would like to achieve by the time you hit 50. So we said number 1, you're now saving for higher education for the children. You have at least 4 times your annual salary saved up. You have secured your home, and you're also maximizing on your retirement savings. Now, 50 to 60, what are some of the things that my beautiful 50-year-olds or in their 50s should look at, financial milestones that they should achieve by the time they hit 60? As you hit 50 and you start preparing for your 60s, there are certain financial milestones that you want to have in place. Right now, at this point in time, you have definitely reached financial maturity. You know, you have taken off all these emergency savings, children and everything else. Children are probably leaving the nest. They're going, some are probably married by now also, and they have their own lives. You want to really start settling and looking at retirement, because you are essentially heading towards retirement. Because most people retire at the age of 60. I would love to retire by the age of 60, earlier if possible, you know. So there are certain milestones that you want to have in place. Number one, as you hit your 50s, right, you want to make sure that your house is now paid off fully. You don't owe anyone. You do not have any obligations towards the bank to be paying for a house. If it's not paid off by now, you want to have paid it off at least in your early 50s, right? That's number one. Number two, no more debt. At this point in time, you do not want to be taking on any more debt. If you had personal loans, overdraft, and all, everything should have been settled by now, because the concept remains, whether in your 20s or in your 50s, debt erodes your savings. It erodes your investments. Now, how much should you have saved up by the time you get to 60? You need to have saved up at least 6 times your annual salary. So 60, I'll use 60 as a basis. By this time, if you're in your 50s, chances are you've probably hit 100,000 in terms of earnings per month. So 100 times, the math will not fail me, but 100 times 12, that's 1.2. 1.2 times 6, that is about, Jesus Christ, 6 times your annual salary saved up by the time you hit 60. Now, this is to ensure that when you get into retirement, you retire comfortably. You've been working, you've been toiling. It's time for you to rest. It's maybe time for you to travel. I hope you started traveling earlier, but it's time for you to be on the cruise ships in the Greek islands. I think I'll do that in my retirement. But there's one more thing that I want us to look at as a financial milestone. Now, as you hit your 50s, you want to review your retirement savings. It's very important to review so that you see that you're still on track, or to see how you are tracking, to see whether you will still reach your intended retirement savings goals. Now, not to panic if you realize that, oh, I needed 4 million or however, and I'm not there yet. You can still accelerate your payments towards retirement savings. Now, typically in Namibia, a lot of employers use or give you a pension fund benefit. If you realize that your employer is now just contributing maybe a little bit, and sometimes you can't contribute from your salary into your employer's pension fund benefit, but you can do it separately, for example, through a retirement annuity. This is across the globe. The naming convention might be different, but I know in South Africa you have retirement annuities. So basically a retirement annuity is an instrument, it's a vehicle that allows you to contribute more for retirement savings. It's basically a tax-effective investment for your retirement, right? And specifically in Namibia, I think that the government is incentivizing us quite okay, just, motivating us to save towards retirement. And in Namibia, we saw amendments to the tax legislation were promulgated in December 2022. And we saw some amendments coming through, specifically with the Income Act tax. We saw that now, especially towards retirement and education, the threshold changed. Previously, you could only contribute up to a maximum of 40,000 Namibian dollars towards your retirement annuity. However, with the amendments, you can now contribute up to 150,000 Namibian dollars annually towards your retirement. Let me just break that down. What does it mean effectively? It's a tax relief. Why is the dog barking? So what does that mean? Essentially, it just means the tax relief. It means that it reduces your taxable income by 150,000 Namibian dollars. So at the end of the day, you pay less tax if you max out your contributions of 150,000 Namibian dollars. Now, guys, this is not restricted to 50-year-olds and above. It is for anyone that's employed that would like to contribute towards their retirement. So, am I moving into too much into the camera? It's fine. The subject is exciting. So in your 20s, especially if you realize that your company doesn't offer pension fund benefits, you can then also opt for a retirement annuity. In the market, you find that various service providers give retirement annuities, so you can take one up. Maximum you're allowed to contribute in a year is 150,000 and not more. Anything else, you need to find other vehicles. That is essentially financial milestones that you want to achieve in every decade. Again, I remember I say this is not definitive to say if you haven't achieved it, you are a failure. This is the rule of book, this is what you should apply. But if you want to really fare off, like you want to get to your retirement in comfort, these are some of the things that you want to consider doing. So I hope this video was helpful. Which age group are you? What are you getting? What are you going to do right? What were you missing? I hope this video was beneficial, and I will see you guys in our next video.